Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. This is Isa, Abu Isa, to another episode of The Night Shift, where we come up with this program to defend Islam from cult characteristics, Haddadiyya wa Hizbiyya, and uphold the honor of the Muslims.
Now, brothers and sisters, inshallah ta'ala, tonight we would like to go over some clear fatwa as well as some clear principles from our illustrious ulama pertaining to the issue that seem to be surrounding the current fitna and the split that have taken place between many of the tulab, the students, as well as the du'at, the callers of Islam, and many of them have split for one form or another based on different understanding pertaining to this very issue that we're talking about now. We're going to open up with some of the kalam with the speech of Sheikh Ruhaili, Sheikh Ibrahim al-Ruhaili.
فكيف لأحد أن يوجب على الناس أن يأخذ بقول قائل بلا دليل.
The Sheikh, he begins, Hafizullah, he said, how is it that a person or people can make it obligatory upon anyone to take the statement of anyone without proof?
ليس لأحد أن يقول هذا حلال هذا حرام هذا حق هذا باطل هذا صاحب حق هذا صاحب باطل إلا بدليل.
He said it's not upon anyone to say something is halal or something is haram, something is the truth or something is falsehood, or something is to be taken as the truth, or this person is a person of truth, this person a person of falsehood, except with proof.
فإن جاء بالدليل وكان الدليل صحيحا وكانت دلالته صحيحة.
He said, if a person he comes with proof, and his proof is sound, it's acceptable evidence, and it's been established,
وسلم من معارضة مثله أو أقوى منه,
and that is free from any other differing with his position that may be equal to it or greater than it,
وجب لزومه.
it becomes obligatory to take that as evidence, meaning it becomes obligatory to follow that evidence. If something doesn't go against it that's equal to it or greater than it, then it's upon us to take that position or what the individual has said.
وإن تخلف واحد من هذه فلا يجب على الأمة أن تلزم قول أحد من الناس كائنا.
If it's something that comes as differing with it, then it's not upon us to take the statement of anyone from the human being, no matter who they may be. After the Messenger of Allah, ﷺ, he's the only individual who we can take evidence from without questioning it. He said to make an individual take a statement because so-and-so said it, this scholar said it. He said this, He said it's not permissible to take a statement of somebody just because it's a particular person. People are obliged to follow the truth, not obviously a personality.
يلزم الناس بالحق ولا يجوز لأحد أن يقول لا نلزم بقول فلان لأنه لا يقول إلا حقا.
He said it's not permissible to say it's obligatory a person to take a person's statement because he doesn't say anything, the statement of this sheikh or that sheikh, because he doesn't not going to say anything but the truth. And that's why you got to take his statement without dalil.
ولا يقول إلا عن دليل. نعم هو بنفسه لا يقول إلا ما يعتقد أنه حق.
He said, it's true that an individual, let's say example, a scholar, is not going to say something without proof, meaning what he believes to be the truth. He's going to say it based on the evidence that he has with him. He's going to make this statement. He's not just going to come out and say something without dalil. What he believes to be dalil for this particular issue.
لو لم يعتقد أنه حق ما قاله. هذا أظن.
He said because if he didn't think it was the truth, he wouldn't have said it. And this is the good thoughts of the ulama. This is having good thoughts of the ulama.
ولا يقول إلا عن دليل قام عنده.
And he said he's not going to make this statement except that the proof that he has with him, that he himself has found and researched as being proof for this particular position that he's taken.
نحن نجزم أن العلماء المعتبرين لا
opinion, a position that scholars of this ummah who are known for the sunnah is not going to say something to this ummah except that they believe that it's the truth. They have the proof, they have the evidence. They're going to say this is the evidence that we have, basically. All right, this having good thought to the ulama.
وما قام الدليل عليه عندهم.
What they believe to be proof for this position, and to them. He keeps saying to them, meaning a scholar is not going to, when he says something, whatever he has, but he believes to be dalil, for him, he believes to be dalil in this issue, he's going to say, he's not going to make a statement without dalil. So the statement, basically he's explaining the statement saying, well, we're going to take the statement of this sheikh and this sheikh because they don't say nothing but the truth. Nah, they're not going to say anything except what they believe to be the truth. Doesn't mean that everybody who has ijtihad is going to be what musib. That everybody who makes and go into an affair to find the evidence in the affair is always going to reach the correct opinion. That doesn't mean that. It just means that he believes it's the truth. He's going to say it because he has the proof, believing that what he's saying is the truth.
لكن بالنسبة لنا لا يلزمنا أن نأخذ بقول العالم في أي شيء وفي أي.
He said, as for us, we're not upon us to take a statement of any alim, any scholar.
لأنه العالم الكبير.
Because he's a major scholar, he's a big scholar. That's not our position. Well, I know it's the truth because Sheikh Falan said it. This major scholar said it. He said that's not proof in Islam. We can't say that. We can't say that this is the truth only because this Sheikh said it.
لأنه المجاهد الكبير لا.
Well, because he's a person who's doing this ijtihad. He's a person that's known for his ijtihad.
وإنما يلزمنا أن نأخذ بالحق.
But what is obligatory upon us to take the truth, the evidence, the truth, even if it goes against this major scholar, for example. Even if it goes against the scholar we love, if the truth goes against him, we take the evidence over the statement of that particular scholar.
فمن ظهر له الحق وجب عليه أن يلزمه.
And whoever the truth becomes clear to, is obligatory upon him to take that stance, not the stance of his scholar, not the stance of his imam or his sheikh or whatever, right? That's just ad-libbing. The sheikh didn't say that, but I'm just ad-libbing. All right.
كيف يظهر الحق أن يقوله عالم معتبر فلا نأخذ الكلام ممن لا عبرة به وأن يقوم عليه الدليل.
He said, it's not upon us to take any evidence from anywhere except that it's established upon dalil. We can't just say Falan said.
Any statement.
Right? Any statement. Some statement comes to me, I have to now find dalil for that. Say, well, what's your proof for saying that? Where's the dalil? How was that understood? I just can't take a statement generally and just say it's the truth only because even though the person may not be lying, it doesn't mean that what he's saying is the truth. Meaning it may be some dalil that he missed, that what he came to wasn't the actual true position in this issue.
Or the sheikh said, before you go on, the sheikh was explaining that even if it's an alim mu'tabar, even if it's from a scholar that who is well known and is considered in this life, that don't mean he's considered in the high esteem in this life, high regard. That don't mean we just take his word for it because of his reputation or because of his status.
Only the Prophet ﷺ has that status.
He still have to have dalil.
أن يصح الدليل عندنا لأن الدليل قد يختلف فيه قد يصح عند فلان ولا يصح عند فلان.
He said because the individual, the evidence is different. Some people may see this as dalil, some people may not see this as dalil. A scholar may see this as dalil. We see it all the time. They may see this as scholar may say, I don't see that as dalil for this issue. But some scholars say, no, that is dalil for this issue. And they differ over how the dalil is understood.
وأن تكون دلالته صحيحة لأن الإنسان قد يستدل بالدليل الصحيح ولكن دلالته لا تصح على المطلوب.
And he said a person may have what he's saying is the truth. He's researched it, but he may be applying it in a way or in a position that it may not have to be applied there. How he's using it and where he's using it at may not be. It may be incorrect. Misapplied in a particular issue. In this particular issue, might be misimplied. So even if the dalil is sahih, the application is not. We still don't take it as dalil.
No.
We don't take it as dalil.
يسلم من معارضة دليل مثله يساويه.
He said, if somebody comes to the dalil, but it's another evidence that equals it, and it's some ikhtilaf basically in it, it's not binding. It doesn't become binding.
أو أقوى منه ولو علم الناس هذا لارتحنا.
And then basically the Sheikh is saying, if we have issue, and this goes into, alhamdulillah, what we're going to talk about. If there's dalil, one scholar has this dalil, other scholars have if it's anything that differs with that statement, then it's not binding upon anyone else because there's ikhtilaf in it. And you can't look down on somebody who doesn't take your position when there's ikhtilaf in the issue anyway.
And that brings us to our point. Why are the students divided? Why are the du'ats? Why are the tulab? Why do they seem to be divided? This comes back again to this particular issue here, and there's many more issues. But one of the main issues again is what the scholar is saying, Sheikh Ruhaili, Sulaiman Ruhaili, Hafidhullah, and that is we have to understand, even the students now have to understand, because a person might have evidence, he have to make sure he applying that evidence correctly. And if another scholar have evidence pertaining to the same issue that might be equal, then you have to see which one is the more stronger in the view, and is it binding on taking it. So one of the big problems that the students have, and reason why they split when they used to be together, is because of this understanding when who can you give dawah to. Is it permissible to give dawah to people upon innovation? Is it permissible to give dawah to different organizations? Is it permissible to give dawah inside a masajid that might be a masajid that has the Qadariya belief? Or might be a masajid that hold the Ikhwani belief.
Sufi.
So these issues become a big issue to some students. And amazingly enough, it becomes a big issue to small students of knowledge. Not really, it don't become too much of a big issue for a lot of firmly grounded people, students of knowledge.
Or laymen's too.
Because they have studied the issue and they have seen that, they looked in it, if there's no restrictions placed and so forth. So that's what we'll be going in today from a contemporary of Fatawa, from our contemporary ulama. And it was put together and collected by our beloved brother Abu Taymiyyah, Muhammad Jalini. He mentioned something very important, just to give give us some firm ground. He said, "What is the usul, the base ruling with regards to sitting with the people of innovation? Can we sit with the people of innovation? Can we talk with the people of innovation?" And now, when we're talking about the people of innovation here, again, we're talking about the people who either felt into innovation or the people who either is the mubtadi' themselves. Okay, understand the two. There's a difference. He said the base ruling has been clarified by the ulama, past and present, with regards to sitting with the people of innovation. The imams of the Salaf have also clarified the impermissibility of sitting with the people of innovation. Okay, the impermissibility. So he said, Fudal ibn Iyad, rahmatullah ta'ala alayh, may Allah make his graves, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala have mercy upon him, expansive mercy. He said, do not sit with a person of innovation. Allah has rendered his action futile and has taken the light of Islam from his heart. As-Sabuni, he said about the Salaf and those who follow their methodology, they hate the people of innovation who innovate into the deen, that which is not from it. They do not love them and they do not keep company with them. They do not listen to their sayings nor sit with them. Of course, a hukm, a ruling, is not primarily taken from the statement of a Salaf. And this is important now because we just heard two statements of the scholars. However, now we have to understand our brothers from amongst the tulab, the students, when you read a statement of the scholar, can you use it as a hukm or proof? And we already went over that about using the athars of the Salaf as a proof. And it must be understanding. Just because you read something like this, can you apply it? Can you say it's a ruling now? He says here, rather it is taken from evidence from the Quran and the Sunnah upon the understanding of the Salaf. Therefore, this principle is deduced from the saying or already come down to you in the book that when you hear the ayat of Allah recited, denied by them and ridiculed, so do not sit with them until they enter into another conversation. Indeed, you will be like them, and this is Surah An-Nisa. And indeed, Allah will gather the hypocrites and the disbelievers in the hellfire altogether. Al-Qurtubi, he said in his tafsir to this verse, he said, if the ruling of abandoning the people of sitting has been established, like we have explained, then abandoning the people of innovation desires is even more emphasized. Also, the Prophet ﷺ said, there will be a group of people towards the end of my ummah. They will speak to you with matters you have not heard of, nor your fathers heard of or heard. So you shall take caution and beware of them. And this is actually collected by Al-Hakim in his Mustadrak. Tayyib. Now the brother goes on. So we see, brothers and sisters, that a clear statement you can't use as an evidence.
Exactly.
So that's for our beloved students. So it's no reason for us, and as again for lay people, to now base your stance off a stance of a student who may or may not understand the issue in totality.
Exactly. Because sitting with the people of innovation, what does that mean exactly?
Exactly.
As we see these general statements that the Salaf have made, what does it actually mean?
You want to go into that one? Or the cases in which?
Are there cases in which these base rulings can change? All right. Is there cases where the base ruling, which is we don't sit with people of innovation, we always said that can be used as a hukum, right? And then is it times where that can now, in particular situations, change, and how can we apply it, right? So we should always take into consideration that general statements of the Salaf should be used in their proper places.
Important.
And general rulings are sometimes changed for specific scenarios, allowing or indeed necessitating this.
Very important.
Right? There may be a situation where now that general statement cannot be applied because it's a specific situation now that may not go into the generality. Right? An example of this is regarding backbiting another Muslim. This example is mentioned due to its relevance to the subject of this compilation. Whilst the asl, the base ruling for this sin, is that it is impermissible to backbite any Muslim. However, certain situations necessitate a change from the base ruling and indeed obligate us to backbite another Muslim. I know, we said, rahimahullah, know that although backbiting is forbidden, it becomes permissible under certain circumstances when done for a specific reason. That which makes it allowable is a valid and legitimate goal, which cannot be achieved except by doing it, the backbiting. He then mentions 6 categories in which backbiting is permitted. Informing regarding an oppressor in order to change an evil and preventing sinning. Number 3, seeking a fatwa. Number 4, warning and advising the Muslim against evil.
No.
Number 5, regarding a person who is open in his disobedience and innovations. 6, in identifying a person by mentioning unique characteristics. The same ruling can be applied to sitting or talking with an innovator. It is permitted to sit and talk with the people of innovation due to a specific situation. Abdul Aziz ibn Baz was questioned.
This is one of the former Mufti, Sheikh bin Baz.
Nah, rahimahullah ta'ala. When is it permitted to cut off, boycott from an innovator? When is it permitted to hate for the sake of Allah? Is boycotting effective in this era? He replied, rahimahullah, the believer looks at these situations from the angle of Iman and the Sharia, free from desires. If boycotting the innovator and being distant from him does not lead to a greater evil, then boycotting him is correct. And the least level it reaches is that it is sunnah, recommended but not obligatory. Similarly to this is boycotting a person whose disobedience is public and makes it apparent. The least level it reaches is that it is sunnah, recommended, not obligatory.
This is very important. It's extremely important what the Sheikh just said. This is why a hijrah need to be done with those who have true knowledge.
Exactly.
And understanding how to apply that particular knowledge. Because we see a lot of the students and a lot of the lay people, what they do is they see something that doesn't seem right outwardly, it doesn't appear right, and it may not be right. But the first thing they think to do is, I'm going to remove myself in totality away from this person, and I'm going to practice boycotting. Look how the Sheikh said that it is sunnah and it is not obligatory. That's important to understand. Right? Is it sunnah and not obligatory? Binding. It's not binding. It's not obligatory. Also, he mentioned inside the statement, because there's some Jews in here. He said that he looked at it from Iman and the Sharia. Other words, he have to what? He have to have Iman, taqwa. Okay, and then you have to have what? You have to look at it what the Sharia legislate in terms of this particular.
So you're saying that
particular
the boycotting has to have good intent in the beginning of it.
Well, you have to look at it according to the confinements of the Sharia.
Exactly.
Not only that, it have to be free from desires. You can't boycott somebody on the way that they look. You can't boycott somebody because the way who they deal with, who they associate with.
Because you don't like them personally.
Because you don't like them. No, you have to make sure now that your boycotting contains in it what we call a maslaha. Is it going to outweigh the bad?
Yeah, exactly.
And then over the mafsada, it's going to outweigh that which is what? Evil. Is it going to be more good in it? Because the Sheikh, he said here, he said, if the boycotting the innovator and being distant from him does not lead to a greater evil, then boycotting him is correct. Okay? If it's not going to cause more harm. And the least level it reaches that it is sunnah, recommended but not obligatory. It's very important to understand. Keep going.
It says, there are many other fatwa with this meaning. However, for the sake of brevity, I have sufficed with this. Furthermore, some of the statements of the Salaf which we find regarding the impermissibility of sitting with the people of innovation are considered to be specific cases from which general rulings cannot be derived. It's understood. That's important to understand that when they were saying this, they were talking about Pacific people in Pacific towns that they already knew about. That was already known, right? It is understood that some of these statements of the Salaf were made regarding individuals who they knew and were aware that the evidence had been established upon them.
That's important before he move on, because he's going to bring one of the mountains and famous scholars who, inshallah ta'ala, that, you know, all of us, alhamdulillah, those who don't have any hatred for the Shaykh, you know, but those who love from the Ahlul Sunnah, he's going to bring his statement in regards to this. But think about that. At the end of that, those whom the evidence have been established, this is important, because now some people say, okay, he should know better. How are you sure that this particular person understand the evidence? And I know many people are going to bring the kalam of Sheikh Rabi' in terms of, do you have to place the evidence to be established upon the innovator? And we already went over that. The Sheikh broke down the 3 classifications, so we don't have to say that a person if a person is outwardly a bit from the classification of people of bid'ah, then you don't have to establish that evidence when it's only well known.
Exactly. Somebody's a Christian or a Jew, I don't have to establish
I don't have to establish that evidence. But if you're talking about somebody who's from Ahlul Sunnah now, you have to make sure that that person understand the evidence. And that's what we're talking about with the students. If so-and-so from amongst the students is incorrect, okay, he took a stance, or he's giving dawah to a group of people that's, you know, it seems as if he's taking a check, or he's with this group of people and he's overlooking their bid'ah. He's overlooking their innovation. He's overlooking their transgression against the sunnah. And he's being silent about that. Now, do we sit here and say, do we apply this? Okay? This is important.
Do we apply it? Because he also is going to go into, there's a difference between giving dawah somewhere, right? Giving dawah somewhere or working within their bid'ah. If somebody asks me to give a khutbah and I give a khutbah there, from that you get the now that I'm aiding them in their bid'ah? How is that? No. You know, we gotta be careful. He says, when discussing the punishment of an innovator, Ibn Taymiyyah, rahimahullah, he said, many of the answers which Imam Ahmed and others gave were in relation to people with whom they were familiar, or the response addressed a specific person whose condition was known. Therefore, such answers are like speaking about Pacific people.
SubhanAllah. So now we see it clear that these imams from the A'imma, when they took these harsh stances that were rightfully so toward certain individuals, that it was done because they knew that person. They knew that person's situation, and they knew the evidence was already conveyed to that particular person. So now when we get students of knowledge who learn some Arabic, okay, by the permission of Allah, some of them are at different levels. They go to this book and they go to that book and they read an isolated statement from one of the Salaf. And they say, you see this statement here? This is harsh against the innovators, you know, and we don't deal with them. We don't speak with them. But you don't know the context. This is what Ibn Taymiyyah is saying here.
Yeah, they was actually talking to people. The rule of innovation was already upon them.
Right? You don't know the actual context. And that's important to understand, because as lay people, we don't read books randomly and just take the statement and apply them to whoever we want to apply to. That's not how Islam is worked.
No.
Okay, now he said a clarification of important doubt, and this is bring us to the reason why we said about these students being divided in the first place. Before mentioning the various statements or the fatwa and the opinions of the scholars pertaining to this issue at hand, there is a doubt that is spread. Unfortunately, this doubt has led some brothers and sisters to wrongfully interpret and implement the statements of the scholars, and therefore diminish the status and honor of many of the du'at, the callers to Islam. The doubt is that whoever goes to a masjid of the people of innovation for da'wah, meaning giving them da'wah, calling them to Allah, then this is automatic, necessitates ta'awun, cooperating with Ahlul Bid'ah. And whoever cooperates with them, he is from them. The ignorance and danger of such a doubt is not hidden from any person with intellect and justice. This is very important, because if we can give da'wah to people in the kanisa, and we can be invited to a church to give da'wah, and we can be invited to a different place, a synagogue, so forth, to give da'wah, well, how much more so we can be invited to a place of people of innovation and give da'wah? Do that mean or necessitate that I am with them in their bid'ah because I went there and gave them da'wah? We got to be careful with this. Is what he's saying. He said a Salafi da'i who goes to a masjid or a jama'iyah or a group or organization which is upon deviation, and he calls to the truth, spreads the sunnah, teaches the Salafi minhaj, and clarifies the doubts, is not to be held responsible for previous or indeed future activities in that masjid which oppose what he teaches. It's important. Well, you went to so-and-so masjid, but they have such and such coming there. They got so-and-so coming there. They got this on the flyer. They got that. How is I'm responsible for how they run their masjid?
Yeah.
If I gave dawah there.
SubhanAllah.
How? I don't understand that. This is what he's saying. This is a doubt.
That's like if I go to my mom's house and call it to Islam, but they do drugs, they do crimes in there like that, then I'm held accountable and I'm attached to the alcohol and in the drugs or whatever problems is going on in their home. Now I'm held accountable for what they do in there because I'm giving dawah inside the home. It just doesn't make sense.
So otherwise, the multitude of scholars who teach in universities, masajids, which is the plural for masjid, and institutes in which there are deviations will have to be criticized and cease to teach therein. And yet we see many Salafi scholars patiently teaching in such places while as advising and rectifying with wisdom and patience. How else would they be taught? If you go in the University of Medina, for many of the students that have been there and witnessed this, you can see that, and you can ask any one of them, there are many multiple scholars that don't hold the same Aqidah.
Yeah.
This is the same thing with Azhar. But predominantly, a lot of the scholars in Azhar, they teach what?
Ashariya.
Ashariya. From the Ashariya creed, or they Sufiya. So you might find in a university where it might be different people upon different, what's the name? But you see Salafi scholars there.
Yes,
you see the Salafi scholar, not only in detail, one of the students have clarified that you see the Salafi scholar having tea with the scholar that's upon innovation.
Stopping in the hallway, talking to him, smiling and
talking to him. This don't mean that we take that the Salafi scholar now agrees with the teacher that's upon innovation in his innovation.
Yeah.
That don't mean that.
That don't mean that.
This is a big problem why the students are at each other's throat to this day. Well, I'm not going to, we're not going to deal with people that, that talk to these people and don't mention their bid'ah and don't say nothing about their bid'ah. Like, come on, you got to use hikmah and wisdom. You have to use hikmah and wisdom. So also he said at last release, he said, also it is important to differentiate between cooperating upon falsehood and tadris, lecturing and teaching. Cooperating with the people of innovation upon their falsehood is not permitted and it is a sin. We all agree on that, inshallah. Whereas teaching, lecturing, advising, and correcting them is not only permitted, but an obligation. Unfortunately, these two separate issues are often confused and is said regarding the Salafi Da'i who has lectured in a non-Salafi masjid, organization, or institute, that he shares their platform and cooperates with them, whereas the reality is that he has spent his time in the masjid privately and or publicly advising and warning the same masjid from their errors and rectifying their mistakes according to his ability. Ultimately, guidance is with Allah, and upon the Da'i is to strive earnestly and correct the mistakes and be patient upon this, because the path is long and it is time consuming. And
that's funny that he brought that up. When he said, oh, they're not advising people's innovation. How you know that? Just because he's not doing it in the open class, but he may be doing it in the office, in the administration. He may be passing out flyers and stuff. He may be talking to individuals who we know in the match, who he's close to, at their homes, drinking tea with them, advising them about the innovation. You don't know that. Just because he's not in front of the camera in the class on Maghrib, the daily class that he gives, saying, oh, you're upon innovation, what you're doing is incorrect. Just because he's not saying it openly doesn't mean that he's not in private with them. We know dawah can be done in private because Nuh alayhi salam, so to Nuh, he gave dawah a'lan, and he gave it what? Asrara, Israra, and he gave it in private.
Sirrun, yeah.
Sirrun.
So he gave it privately, and he also gave it publicly.
Exactly.
Also, not to mention that, Sheikh Uthaymeen, there was a student that stood up in his class, and he was going into the Sheikh saying, y'all don't advise the rulers, y'all don't advise the rulers, and so forth. So the Sheikh said, how do you know that we don't advise the rulers?
Exactly.
How do you have intimate knowledge that you don't know that we don't say nothing to the rulers in private? You don't have that knowledge with you. So you don't know if the brother is talking to them. And that's because a person from amongst the students have been invited to a place, an organization or institute to talk that is known for deviation, don't mean he have to go right in and start speaking about the innovation that they're upon.
Yeah.
There's nothing necessitate that he has to do that. He can't now condone the innovation that is done in front of his face, but at the same time, he have to use hikmah in the whole situation, so that way they don't stop the dawah. They allow the dawah to still come through.
No.
And I think this is one of the biggest problems that we see here, especially in the West, and even overseas, unfortunately, is that many of the students are at each other's throats on issues like this because they don't properly fully understand.
I'll give you a good example. Say if you go to a masjid and maybe they misunderstand some of the things of the sunnah, right? Then you give a class on the seerah of the Prophet ﷺ, on what the sunnah means linguistically and things like that, right? Or you start giving the fada'il of the Sahaba, what is the benefits of the Sahaba, what is the virtue of the Sahaba, how we should love the Sahaba, and you go over that. That is dealing with their innovation. Because you're getting them to love the Sunnah. You're getting them to love the people who carried the Sunnah. So that way they start looking into their biographies and looking into how they understood things. Then they start to get away from the innovation. You don't have to particularly just go right in. You can bring what you call that? Step by step. We say
Shayin for shayin.
Shayin for shayin.
So the ruling regards the rulings of the contemporary scholars
regarding to teaching and lecturing in the masajid of Ahlul Bid'ah. He said, in preserving integrity and trustworthiness when conveying knowledge, it is only correct that I bring the various fatwa, statements, and opinions of various contemporary ulama, even if they differ in their opinions.
So this is just to be fair. You're going to find some of these fatwas, they're going to say, no, you cannot give dawah in these particular masajids. No, you cannot give dawah to these organizations. So you're going to find some fatwas like that. You're going to find some verdicts from the ulama who are strict on the stance of not doing that. But you have to understand, you have to take in consideration there are going to be other ulama who doesn't. Now, what do you do in this situation? You have to realize that it's not binding. For those who take that position that the sheikh takes and he brings his evidence, then you can do that. You can say, okay, Sheikh so-and-so brought evidence that no, we don't take the position. I'll give you another example. Video taking. There are some scholars, especially many of the scholars in Yemen, and scholars all over, from Sheikh Mukbil camp and otherwise, who don't take the permissibility, like Sheikh Al-Albani was one of them, of recording oneself. Like how we're recording ourselves now, like you see a lot of the, actually right now, Sheikh Fawzan actually got a Periscope, where they record him live now doing Periscope. But you find a lot of other scholars who don't take that stance, that you can record yourself, even for dawah purposes. So for those scholars who stick to that, they don't now make inkar of the other scholars, nor do they split or make wala wa bara based off of this position that they have. They don't say, well, we're going to refute those scholars who does allow themselves to be recorded.
Exactly, because it's all ijtihad.
Yeah, because it's ijtihad, and they understand that it's not binding on the next person. Unlike what we see what the students will do. The students will say, okay, we call Sheikh Rabi', we call Sheikh Muhammad Al-Hadi, we call Sheikh Abdullah Bukhari, we call Sheikh Ubaid, and they all gave us the fatwa that we don't deal with the people of innovation, that we don't do such and such, that we don't do such and such. Fine. It's okay, you can take that stance, provided you taking upon the evidence that they bring. But now you can't go and make your whole stance against everybody. You know, so-and-so is off it now because he don't take the stance of Sheikh Abdullah Bukhari.
Because these issues are not from the usul.
It's not from the usul. It's from ijtihad. Because if that's the case, then you would see a fighting amongst the scholars themselves and these very fatwas that you're getting ready to see.
And you don't.
And you don't see that.
And he says, I have included as many fatwas as I could find in the short restricted time I have. And if anybody's aware of other fatwa that I have not mentioned, then I will amend this compilation and add to it in subsequent editions of this compilation. Compilation. And so I've also included 2 fatwa by Al-Lajna Ad-Da'ima, the permanent committee of scholars, with regards to entering into churches or other places of worship in order to call them to spread Tawheed and call them to Islam. Bearing in mind that is not forbidden from anybody. That takes place in such places of worship from shirk and kufr.
No, so he said, Al-Lajna Da'ima. This is the first fatwa that we'll be able to get to. We're not going to be able to do all of them, inshallah ta'ala, before we stop. But the Al-Lajna Da'ima, the permanent committee of scholars. Okay? Question. In our town, we have a masjid for Ahl Sunnah and another one for At-Tijaniyya, a deviant Sufi sect, embracing strange beliefs far from Islam. And another one for Al-Qadariyya, a deviant sect that claims that Allah has no power over His creation and humans are independent of Him, as well as other masajids that are known for superstitious practice. If we practice dawah in the masajid of Ahl Sunnah, it will not be possible for us to reach these people unless we go to their masajid and offer salat with them. We can then practice dawah, meaning calling them, in their masjid, with the intention that if we do it in their masjid, some of them might accept it. Is it permissible for us to offer salat with them for this purpose? What advice can you give me when I arrive in the town, and what are the ways that I can use to confront these people? Response, the answer. When arriving in your town, you should adhere to Ahlul Sunnah wal Jama'ah and populate their masjid with ibadah, worship, cooperate with them to study beneficial knowledge, and to deliver lessons, khutbah sermons, and exhortations to guide the people to the truth and inform them about the way of the Salaf in terms of the knowledge and practice. You can also attend the assemblies of the Sufi sect, Al-Tijaniyya, Al-Qadariyya, and other groups who introduce bid'ah, innovation in the deen, and go to their public gatherings and invite them to the Quran and the Sunnah, whatever is reported from the Prophet, with wisdom and good exhortation, and argue against their bid'ah in a way that is best, in the hopes that Allah will guide them to the right path, but do not perform salat behind them. And may Allah grant us success, and may peace and blessings be upon the Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, his companions. I mean his family and his companions. The current committee here was Abdullah ibn Qa'ud, Abdullah ibn Ghuyan, Abdul Razak al-Afifi, and Sheikh bin Baz that responded to this. So we see in this question, this fatwa here, that it's permissible now, according to these four scholars, permanent committee, that you can go teach in a Sufi sect.
SubhanAllah. We know it's ikhtilaf in the issue. We're just saying there's scholars who say you can do it, and scholars say you can't.
We're not talking about people who may or may not, they use dicker beads. We're not talking about people who
a general masjid in the city.
Yeah, we're not.
That ain't upon anything.
Yeah, just how much more so? We're talking about a masjid that people who deny the qadr of Allah.
Nah.
People who say that there's, we already know the Tijaniyya, the Sufi set.
Yeah.
How strange they go, that we're one with Allah, wahdatul wujud, all this extra stuff.
They spin around and stuff like that.
So look what he's saying. Because if you think about it, Allah has an ayat in the Quran for Surah Al-Ankabut, which is the 29th surah. Well, Allah tells Muhammad SAW and the believers, He said, take to the people the book. What, right? Allah tujadilu. He said, well, argue with them with what? Illa billati. Argue with them with that which is hikmah wa maw'idha. Wa hiya allati bil ahsan. Now, if think about it, the Christians and the Jews, how would the Prophet ﷺ connected with them if he would have just cut himself off from them?
Exactly.
Allah Jalla wa'ala said, no, you can engage them. You can even do business with them. You can even interact with them.
If you'd implemented boycott in the way that we see some of the students doing that Christians and Jews would never have got dawah.
Never. That's not even understood like that. You would have never seen people get dawah, just cut off the roadway like that. Inshallah ta'ala. So this is advice for ourselves as well as for the tulab al-ilm, to remember that your brother in Islam, if his asl is Ahlul Sunnah, then do not hold them binding to an ijtihad, a ruling that is based on ijtihad in and of itself anyway. You go ahead.
Sheikh Abdullah ibn Baz, rahimahullah, the question: there exists a masjid in our area that has been built by a group from the Sufiyya. This was after we Ahlul Sunnah wanted to build it. However, they insisted on building it, and so they did. The masjid is under their administration and control. They hold sessions of poetry and praise in the masjid. Is it permissible for us, the Sunnis, to pray in this masjid with them and also pray behind their imam who is an innovator? Or what else can we do? Response: if their imam is not a disbeliever and he only has with him some innovations that do not necessitate a person to be exited from Islam, then there is nothing preventing one from praying with them, as well as advising, educating, and teaching them by calling them to Allah after the prayers. Also, there is no problem in circles of knowledge in the masjid, so that people benefit, learn, and leave the innovation they have with them. Inshallah. This is from cooperating upon righteousness and taqwa, and also from the avenue of advising each other. If, however, the imam performs that which necessitates disbelief,
kufr now,
such as the person who seeks deliverance and rescue from the Prophet ﷺ, supplicates to other than Allah, seeks rescue from the deceased, makes oaths and vows by them or sacrifice in their name, then this is disbelief and misguidance. These actions are acts of disbelief, and so it is not permissible to pray behind such a person. This is because these actions are acts of disbelief in Allah, the Exalted, and it is polytheism.
So this is the second fatwa we see from Sheikh bin Baz himself. The first one's the permanent committee. But I want to mention something here. Notice how the Prophet ﷺ allowed the kuffar, before they was even Muslim, right? When they had got caught and when he took them captives, when the Muslims took them captives, what did he allow them to do? Teach the Muslims what? How to do what? Read and write.
That's deep.
He taught the Muslims, he allowed the kuffar at the time, before even. Allah talks about this in Surah At-Tawbah, which is the 9th surah, which is also known as Surah Bara. Allah Jalla wa'ala mentioned about that hatta, and today what? Today able to listen hatta kalam, to yastami'a kalam Allah. Right? To yasma'a kalam Allah. Until he's able to hear what? the kalam of Allah, Allah's speech. So Allah allowed these captives to teach, the Prophet ﷺ allowed these captives to teach the Muslims how to read and write.
Yeah.
Here, educating from what?
Yeah.
The kuffar.
So,
now, what's my point of bringing this? Again, because also understanding, educating, and teaching. The Shaykh saying in terms of bid'ah that's take you out of the fold of Islam or is disbelief in kufr, then you can't pray behind them. Educating and teaching them doesn't mean you are severe from that. You still can educate and teach them. You can't pray behind them. Now we go to Sheikh Muhammad Nasruddin al-Albani, inshallah. What they said, the muhaddith of our time. The question in summary, if some of the Salafi students, now this is more specific now, if some of the Salafi students of knowledge were invited to give a lecture at a masjid of the people of Hizbiyya, okay, can he answer their invite, bearing in mind that he would not be able to speak regarding issues which he opposes them in? Now this is important because some of the students, and we passed the time of mentioning names. I think we already clarified all that. But some of the students, they are so shadid and stern on this position that you cannot give dawah. And they actually accuse a student that, when he was invited to this radio show and he didn't talk about the mistakes that these individuals have that opposes the deen. Keep in mind now, because some students are stern on that. No, if you give dawah to them, you have to talk about the innovation that they're upon right there that opposes the sunnah. So this is what Sheikh Al-Albani going to say in his answer. He says, to speak regarding issues which he opposed them in. The Imam Al-Albani, rahmatullahi ta'ala alayhi, answered by saying, he should oblige upon them, meaning the conditions, and he should not be the one being obliged. Now, what do we mean by this? Meaning, he the one who stipulate his conditions for giving the talk there, not the other way around. If he's going to go to them and they're going to place conditions or restrict him from giving his dawah, then he should refrain. This is what the Shaykh is saying. Okay? Look what he goes on to say next. He said, the question now comes in and say, so if he comes to know that he would not be able to utter words of truth, whether they are pleased with it or not, he can still attend. The Shaykh said they could probably oblige upon him a topic to speak about. Okay, so perhaps they want him just to speak about a certain topic, not anything that he want to choose to talk about. Okay, the question said yes. So Sheikh Al-Albani say now, so if it is based upon their desires, then he should not be pleased with it, nor should he attend. As for if they give him a choice, then he should oblige upon them the topic which he will be speaking about, and he should likewise not surprise them with an unexpected topic during the course of the lecture. Why? Because it's their event. Yeah. It's their event. But at the same time, he should also be able to choose. Not allow them to choose for him. He should be able to choose what topic he's going to speak about. But if he's going to speak about a topic, he should not introduce a new topic without discussing with them, because this is not what they agreed upon. This is their event, and they're the ones orchestrating it. The Sheikh said, after that, he said, the question is, say yes. Sheikh Al-Albani said, being the reason that coming with an unexpected topic can arouse a problem, that could probably become a barrier for him continuing this topic, but rather he should say to them, I am going to give a lecture, for example, regarding Tawheed, for example, the verse of Allah. If you differ in anything amongst yourself, refer it to Allah and His Messenger. And if they agree, then he can embark upon it, or else he should not. This is what I intended by my statement. He should oblige upon them. Conditions, he should not be the one obliged. So far, we see from 3 scholars talking about this. The first time Sheikh Al-Albani mentioned to us that about the restrictions. Sheikh bin Baz by himself, he mentioned to us that long as it's not the type of bid'ah that takes you outside. They all
different conditions.
Exactly. Sheikh Muqbil.
Sheikh Muqbil ibn Wadi'i rahimahullah, he says, how do the students of knowledge deal with individuals from the groups that are referred to as being Islamic, such as the Ikhwani al-Muslimin and Jama'at al-Tabligh? Answer. He deals with them by giving them da'wah to Allah Ta'ala, while they are the most deserving to be given da'wah. See? But you notice that here in America, in the West, we say, oh, you can't go to that masjid, or you can't give them da'wah, but we give da'wah to the Christian. The girl, she's pretty, we give da'wah to her, you know? But we don't give da'wah to the Muslim who may be falling into misguidance and falling into misunderstanding. We leave him. But we don't leave the one who's called Allah as a son, even though both of them deserve da'wah, but the Muslim is more deserving first to get da'wah. Right? He says, due to them being deceived, whereas they think that the Jama'at al-Tabligh is upon the correct path, and they think that our Ikhwani Muslimin are upon the straight path. So I advise every brother to strive to clarify and convey the correct da'wah, whereas Allah, the Almighty, says in His book, speak to them with an effective word, to believe in Allah, worship Him, obey Him, and be afraid of Him, to reach their inner selves. Allah the Most High says, there is no good in most of their secret talks, save in Him who orders sadaqah, or ma'ruf, Islamic monotheism, all that is good and righteous deeds which Allah has ordained, or conciliation between mankind, and he who does this, seeking the good pleasure of Allah, we shall give him a great reward. It is an important matter that you mix with them, right? And to give them da'wah. However, it is a must you be totally aware of them using you as a figure to attract the people by. They must say, we want you. They may say, we want from you to give a lecture at so-and-so council, while they merely intend to say to the people, so-and-so is with us. Whereas they attract the youth by you, or they may say, we want you to give a lecture in so-and-so's masjid. So if you come to know that they do not intend except to attract youth by you, then no, do not attend. And devote yourself to beneficial knowledge and teaching, even if you only have 2 people with you, rather even you do not have no one with you, whereas in that case you can memorize what you are able from the Quran, the Sunnah of the Messenger alayhi salatu wasalam. You can learn the Arabic language and the knowledge of hadith, and other than that.
So we see that yes, it is true that you have to be aware and you have to be alarming that, okay, what is the agenda of being invited to some of these organizations or some of these masajid institutes? Are they trying to increase themselves in number? Are they trying to use me versus me trying to use them? So we see the Sheikh has given us some insight in here that the da'i now should be on guard and see what is the case may be.
You got to use script.
Keep in mind now, we're talking about masjids that are definitely upon innovation.
Not general masjids.
We're not talking about masjids that are upon sin by way of certain things. For example, you might see a masjid might have a whole jazz concert or a jazz section inside, not in the musalla area, but in the masjid.
In the building where the masjid is.
In the building where the masjid is at. Yeah. No doubt, music is sin. No. Music is not innovation. Now, if they somehow, may Allah protect them and protect all of us, if they somehow believe that the music somehow plays a part of the ibadah or something in Islam, then now that becomes innovation. But if they don't believe that the music got anything to do with the ibadah, but it happened to be in the same building where the masjid is at, no doubt this is a sin. But nevertheless, it doesn't mean that I can't now give them dawah or I can't pray in that masjid.
I mean, to bring it home in Philadelphia, right, for example, we have some masajid that are just general, like for example, we have Masjid Taha.
Yeah, we don't have to mention any names.
I'm saying we have Masjid, we have Al Jamia and places like that. Masjid, those are general places where people pray. They're not the same as a masjid that's Sufi or Tajaniya or Qadariya or places like that. The scholars are actually talking about places that are clearly ran by people of innovation, not by general people who go there and they just not knowledgeable and they have ignorance with them. It's not the same type of situation.
Yeah, and it's more so about applications. And multiple scholars from Sheikh Fawzan, Sheikh Ruhaili as well, Sheikh Suleiman Ruhaili and many other scholars besides them, they mentioned that the reality is what's given consideration and not the asma, not the names. And why I'm mentioning this, because we have a big problem here. We seem not to attend any masjid unless the masjid say Salafi, or unless we think that the people there call themselves Salafi. That's a big misunderstanding, because like Sheikh Fawzan said, not my words, just like Sheikh Fawzan, one of the leading scholars of today, he said it's fine, and we already read this statement. Actually, he said, and you can find this on the internet, he said it's perhaps a person who doesn't call himself Salafi is more Salafi than one who calls himself Salafi. Think about that. A person who doesn't call himself Salafi is more Salafi than a person who calls himself Salafi. Think about that. Why? What is the Sheikh saying? He's saying because it's going to be giving consideration to the action. The person might be adhering to the way of the Salaf without worrying about adhering to the name. Most people saying, okay, for example, you're just going to exclude all the buyut of Allah, all the houses of Allah. Now you're going to exclude them, knowing that you have to pray because it don't say Salafi, or they're not known to be a Salafi masjid. That's a big mistake, and I believe we advised the brothers over and over. We heard a brother in the khutbah say this. He said there's only 3 Salafi masjids in the city of Philadelphia, and he didn't say fima a'lam, according to what I know, according to what we know best. He just said this unrestrictedly. And, alhamdulillah, we advised them that this type of statement is not a statement that you should be saying. First and foremost, stop trying to restrict the masajids of Allah. Number 2, if the masajids that happen to be calling to upon the truth and adhering to that way, and they happen to be few in number. Alhamdulillah, we already know that this deen going to go back to be estranged, and they're going to be few in number. So we cooperate and we work with one another. But we don't have to run around and say, this is a Salafi masjid, so in terms, this one isn't. So I'm not going to give the local masjid that doesn't have any graves, that's not calling to open innovation. I'm not going to give that any right to have more right over me. I'm going to skip past that masjid to go to a masjid that might be on the other side of town just so I can say I'm with the Salafi.
It doesn't make sense. My neighborhood masjid has the right over me. Long as it's not
go back and research. It's hadith
or innovation that takes him out of Islam.
Go ahead.
I think it's next.
Yeah. The next statement before we stop, because we're not going to have to do the whole thing. It's real short, brothers and sisters. Just remind us to really put up the links. I know we always say we're going to put up the links for the information. Just remind us to put up the links, and I'll just start uploading the files to the page so that you can be able to read this stuff yourself. Inshallah ta'ala. It's in English as well. The next scholar, by the permission of Allah. All right, hold on. There was another question that we forgot here from Sheikh Muhsin al-Abad. That's the next scholar, Hafidullah. He's also one of the leading scholars and muhaddith of our time. He teaches in the Prophet's Masjid. Question. Does one cooperate with the Islamic groups of Ikhwani Muslimin? And everybody always hears someone, he's an Ikhwani. All the Tulab calls other people Ikhwani. They call different students, he's Ikhwani. He's a Hizbi and he's an Ikhwani. I want you to pay attention to major scholars, people who really got ilm, people who sat and study for years. Look what he says. Does one cooperate with the Islamic groups of the Ikhwani Muslimin and the Jama'at al-Tabligh and give lectures where they are located in their masajids? Now listen to his statement, because Sheikh Muhsin, look what he's going to say. He's going to say no. Okay? He does not give lectures where they are located, nor does he teach there, for indeed they will not benefit from his lectures and his durus. Rather, they're only going to use them as a means to execute their goals and their desires. This is Sheikh Muhsin al-Abad. Now, this is one scholar who believe that these people are not looking for the truth. They're only looking to what? Attract other people to there and utilize those Salafi da'is.
That's his ijtihad, right? But guess what? Now we go back to Sheikh Sulaiman al-Ruhaili when he said, if you have two issues that are opposite of one another, you can't make it binding upon me. Whoever takes Sheikh Muhsin al-Abad's position cannot make it binding upon me if I take Sheikh bin Baz's position.
So I'm going to give it to you straight like this. If you have, for example, the du'ats, such as many of the du'ats, and we know them, such as Ibn Abu Hassan Malik, such as Ibn Somali. If you have them saying, okay, we don't deal or cooperate with the people of innovation, whether they're Ikhwani, Jama'at Tabligh, or whatever, we don't do that. That's fine. If you have evidence, that's okay. We're not going to split hairs over that.
We're not.
But now the problem come in is when you try to make it binding on the next student or da'i, that he can't deal with those people because you take that position, and he have many other scholars who don't take that position. That's not not fair.
Then you place innovation that he's an innovator or he's not clear because of the position that he took that's not yours. Because it's not binding upon either one of you to take the other's position in the issue. Because we have scholars who have ikhtilaf in it. And they don't make it binding on each other.
So you have, for example, you have our brother Bilal Davis right now. He's on the part 8, almost part 7. And doubts surrounding the dawah. And he's going back to Green Lane Masjid. And he's going back to all of the situations, even dealing with Tahir and everyone. He's going back and he's trying to explain to everyone why they took the stances that they have taken. Okay? He's going back and explaining his historical count. Now, whether or not I personally think that needs to be done, okay, this is something that he felt as though that it needs to be done. I just believe that when someone asks you a question, especially of the ulama, they don't go back into historical accounts. They just give you the answer for the question. If it's dalil there, if it's evidence there, they're going to give it to you without going back. But he believed that he must go back. So now what is my point of mentioning this? Because as he go back and explain the reason for his stances, why he took it, he said for multiple times, Green Lake Masjid was inviting people there that was all in these questions we're talking about. People that was either upon deviation, upon an organization, upon a different group, or this and this and that, and it was other people that was coming there that was dealing with. So he based his position on them without speaking to the ulama. And I'm not going to say without totally. There are some ulama that they went back to and they did spoken to about these particular issues. And there are some ulama that they haven't spoken to about these particular issues. And why is I'm saying that? Because when we ask the particular specific questions that we ask, it should have been clear, crystal clear, brothers and sisters. When someone asks you if someone is a deviant, It's no going back to a historical account. You don't have to explain, well, I saw him do this, and this was why we took this stance, and I saw him do that, and this is why. No, if he's a deviant, then that means the evidence was already established against him. And if he was a deviant, then that means what? That the ulama has already saw that the innovation that he had was already inside him. So if that's the case, then that means all you have to do is quote the evidence.
I see.
Now it's nothing else left. Okay, we quote this evidence and this is what we leave. But the problem is, the reason why now you won't quote the evidence because there's so many red tape you got to go over. Now you're going to say, okay, he's a deviant according to whom? So this scholar say the evidence was this. Okay, so was it established evidence? How mufassir was it? Was it detailed? What usul did he go against to? See, all this stuff becomes a problem. What usul? What principle did he go to?
What kind of bid'ah is it?
What kind of bid'ah is it? Is bid'ah mufassika? What is it? All this becomes a problem. Now he's going to say, oh, you belittling the scholar's statements. You belittling the status of the scholar. You're not going to take from the scholar anyway. That don't mean that. We're just saying because if that scholar based it that, then who agrees with him in that position? Not meaning that it had to be binding to agree. But know that this specific ruling is what? It's
well, I mean, first of all, we're not, we don't take a statement because a scholar said it. We're based on dalil. Things are based on evidence in Islam, not because a personality said it. We can't just take that.
No, but we still have to know their evidence. And when it comes to the rulings on Pacific people, then there's scholars who does it, and it's not just to lab or lay people that do it. It's scholars that does it. So if it's a scholar that have placed tabdir on any individual, then we would like to hear who those scholars are. You don't have to go back. You don't have to go back. We don't have to see. Because, brothers and sisters, I'm going to tell you what happened when you do this stuff. It can be called a deflecting tactic. But let's shoot the brothers a bell. I'm going to play a devil's advocate here. Let's just say him going back and saying that we saw all of these things. Okay, if you truly saw what you saw, and I'm not saying that it probably wasn't incorrect from the door, but did you go about it the proper way? Okay, because evidence, as Allah Jalla wa Ala said, La ikraha fi din qad tabayyana rushd min al-ghayy, that there is no compulsion in the religion. The truth stands out from falsehood. So you don't never have to add, twist, subtract anything when it comes to crystal clear evidence. You don't have to flake it up. You don't have to name call. You don't have to character assassinate. You don't have to use propaganda tactics. You don't have to speak ill of your brothers. You can just say, listen, brothers and sisters, this is incorrect according to Islam and to the understanding. Bang, he said this, here go the proof. He did this, here go the proof. He understood this, bang, and this is why we refute.
Well, one of the things is a person is really a deviant truly and really a sinner truly, then you don't have to reach for straws to prove it.
You don't have to do that. You can just pretty much come out with it. Yeah. And that's why I find brothers and sisters, that's why I find it hurts me. It truly does hurt me because many of the du'ats and many of our brothers, they are our brothers in Islam, first and foremost. And they said, La ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah, and that means something to me and the brother. Okay, and alhamdulillah, they're trying their best at what apparently that I used to think that they're trying their best to adhere to Quran and Sunnah, Fahm Salaf. But as I've seen of their responses lately, and a lot of their replies lately when asking simple questions, even from lay people, is that it's always seemed to be more so attacking side that's saying, you know, we're going to name call you, we're going to character assassinate, we're going to add to your words, we're going to subtract your words, we're going to flake up your words. All that stuff is irrelevant. All of that is irrelevant. We're not saying that you might not be wrong that so-and-so from a student had made errors. We're not saying that. We're saying that, okay, prove that he's an innovator now. Does those errors mean that we cannot cooperate with him no more? Does those errors mean that we no longer can greet him no more? Does those errors mean that we can no longer what? Participate with him no more? Or take from him no more? That's what we need to understand. If that's not the case, and this is coming from you guys, making ijma' amongst yourself and not ijma' of the Salaf. Because no contemporary scholar got no ijma'. Ijma' is from the what? The Salaf. So if it's coming from the Salaf, then you need to, because their principles are crystal clear. Look through the books. It's laid down. So if you got that, then bring it to us. You don't got to go back to part 8. You don't got to go to part 9. We don't need all that. All we need is if they're upon deviation.
No.
Upon deviation.
Bid'ah is clear. Bid'ah is wadih.
There's been statements.
Bid'ah is wadih.
There's been statements back and forth. And I just want to address one more issue before we end. And that's the issue of a lot of people saying, well, is that a head? You know, somebody got to bow down and make Islah. Somebody got to make a rectification. Brothers and sisters, Inshallah ta'ala, maybe one day if Allah blesses, we're going to bring some kalam on the ulama explaining what really is Islah. There are different meanings to Islah. Some people always think Islah means to rectify the situation between two people and for them to become back close again. That might never happen. Or Islah can be to rectify something that was already corrupt in the society. By removing the corruption from the society, you are doing what? Islah. Even though you're not rectifying and joining with that particular person. And that's what caused me problems, because many people say, why you brothers don't want to bring and rectify it? Go back to this and do that. No. We are to believing that we're rectifying it. We're bringing to you the statements of the ulama. We're bringing to you the statements of Allah and His Messenger. That is Islah. That is Islah. And we're trying to let you, the lay people, not wait for a middleman to come translate for you to get what he wants you to get from it, but for yourself to see that the ulama, they are all not unanimous on this situation. There are some ulama who are stern. There are some who are lax. There are some who are balanced. Okay, so you don't have to make it all this big.
I mean, Islah has something like, for example, the police doing their job. That's Islah. Stopping the criminals, Islah. Why? Because Islah stopping corruption in the earth is from what?
Islah.
From Islah. Another example, when he said the scholar is going to be the minority correcting the majority. That doesn't mean that those who uphold the Sunnah correcting those corrupt people who are the majority means that now the people of Sunnah are now joining in the sin and joining with those people. No, they're going to hate the people who call them to the right. But they still consider to be Islah by saying this is bid'ah, by saying this is Sunnah, by saying this is shirk, by saying this is kufr. That's Islah. Whether somebody listens to you or not, still consider what? Islah.
No, man. Inshallah ta'ala, we ask Allah to allow us to all legislatively hate bid'ah in the manner and in the way that it's intended. Not to hate bid'ah based upon our desires and emotions. Because like the scholars of the past said, it's not upon you to say, for example, a person thinking he hating bid'ah by screaming at the top of his lungs, I hate bid'ah, or feeling as though that he got to be so harsh and shadid. That's not a sign that you hate bid'ah. The way that you hate bid'ah, again, brothers and sisters, is going to also go back to legislatively the way that you're supposed to hate it. The fact that it goes against that which Allah has legislated and His Messenger has legislated. The fact that there might be two types of bid'ah. The fact that there might be one who openly calls to it and one who doesn't. The fact that you still have to be just in terms to dealing with the person of innovation. The one who fell into it and the one who introduced it. The fact that there are certain rules and principles and guidelines that you have to observe.
Not everybody who does a bid'ah is an innovator.
So exactly. So now your hate will be based on the Sharia, which the Sharia is just in and of itself because it comes from Allah who is adl. And Allah yuhibbul adl. And Allah loves justice. And He is the one who's just. So at the end of the day, you're going to, if you apply it according to the legislation, you're going to be adl. You're going to be just. I don't hate Fulan because he's so-and-so. No, this is what you're going to do. Barakallahu feek. And we just want to advise the brothers in amongst the tulab, especially some brothers, Anwar Wright, there's no need. Abu Khadija, there is no need for the tweets that we see you post about bayans that Shadeed Muhammad have written. What's the point of that? Statements that you said about Akil Ingram, there's no point of that. Right now,
saying that he's Muftari,
right now,
and stuff
all of
like
that stuff is not needed. If you want to sit down with those brothers, which I advise you brothers to do now, because we at the point that you don't have to make it a public campaign no more. We already established the fact that when we ask you brothers for answers, we ask you brothers simple questions, y'all weren't able to respond, and I have to take that because you don't have any evidence for them being a mubtadi', innovators, nor do you have any evidence that they cannot be dealt with or we should not deal with them. And even if you're going to work off the statements of Sheikh Ubaid and Sheikh Muhammad al-Hadi and Sheikh Rabi', then work off them and leave people alone. Don't speak and don't call, because I'm pretty sure if any of your followers that follow you, any one of you was to ask you where did Sheikh Rabi' or any of these scholars say that Muhammad Munir is named Muftari. I'll wait. I want to tell me where one of them called him Muftari. I also want to know where one of the scholars called Sheikh Tahir a nationalist. Where did one of the scholars call Shadeed Muhammad a nationalist or a racist? I need to know where's that. And if that's not coming from them, and we're not saying that they are dalil, but if it's not coming from them, then don't proceed to scholars. Okay? Likewise, on the other end, we don't want no one from anyone from amongst the tulab talking ill or bad about one another. That's not what we promote. That's not what we have been promoting. Just because we have people that comes on the show, we invited those brothers to come on the show as well to speak their piece. That don't mean that we're going to want people to come on the show and just badmouth everybody. But we are not naive. And we're not foolish to think that this stuff been going on for 30 or something years and that people all of a sudden now want you to rectify. We're not foolish to believe that. There are some diseases, as Sheikh Shidri said, and we believe this. Some of our brothers, many of our brothers from the Tulab and the Du'at, and even from some amongst the scholars, and that's the ringing for other scholars to deal with, not us, have diseases in their hearts. And this disease then spread that where it's caused so much fitna amongst us now. Now we got to choose on personality and not on knowledge. Since when we don't choose on academics? Since when that academics never been a factor on who we're going to take from? Since when? Since when it's been cool to say, yeah, so-and-so has a degree, so we're going to overlook the fact that he teaches in the Prophet's Masjid, that he has a degree, that he's, loved and respected by scholars, or so-and-so have this. We're going to overlook that for so-and-so who haven't studied anywhere. We're going to overlook that now. Why? Because so-and-so who haven't studied anywhere, he runs with a group of individuals who say that we hate bid'ah and we don't interact with people with bid'ah. And the one that does have a degree, he understands that dawah can be given multiple ways and he can use his influence and his intellectual prowess and things that he have learned to reach across to those people.
Well, that's kind of like using the poor man, the pauper, over the king. That's like going to ask the pauper or the poor man for ruling in a kingdom that doesn't belong to him. That's like, and the king is right there in the castle.
Don't make sense.
That doesn't make sense.
How does it make sense? We have to start using our intellects now. I know many of us, we might be lay people, but that don't mean we don't have intellects. That don't mean many of us don't have education, background. That don't mean all of us, are urbanites and we in the hood and we don't have no understanding at all. No, we know right from wrong and we know what we feel in our hearts. Stop allowing your brothers to speak ill of your other brothers. Bottom line, stop allowing yourself to hate your brother. None of you right now, listening to this or not listening to this, anybody right now should not hate Shadeed Muhammad. If you find yourself hating Shadeed Muhammad, period, if you find yourself hating Shadeed Muhammad. Now, if you want to hate something that Shadeed said that might have been incorrect or went against the Sunnah, and if you want to take a stance against Shadeed based off of what the ulama have said, then you're more welcome to do that. But don't make it binding on someone else to do it. Don't say you're not going to associate yourself with this person. But you don't have no evidence that he's a mubtadi', and that you don't have no evidence that he left his asl, which was Sunnah, and calling to Sunnah. Ain't it strange that he used to give talks up to Germantown? They was parading him around. Is it not strange that many of the people was dealing with him? But now all of a sudden, they have a fallout, a personal squabble. Now everybody's upon bid'ah. Don't hate someone unless you hate them based on the law. By